ready to roll?
Yep.
All right. Obviously, it was a very buoyant mood yesterday in meetings and in practice. Our players were not just very excited to defeat their rival on the road, but there were a lot of aspects that the manner of our performance, the way that we played. We felt like we had the best week of preparation leading up to this game. As a coach, you really want that to correlate. You want to see the execution in practice, match up in the game. We had a little bit of a different demeanor about us. The day of the game at the hotel during walkthroughs, a little bit of a different demeanor during pregame warmups, where you could tell maybe the guys were really locked in, really focused on the job at hand, and then to go out and to play the way that we played, and certainly to put together a dominating performance on the defense side of the ball, and then to make some of the plays we made offensively from an explosive standpoint was outstanding. We and then to add in special teams. This is the third week in a row that the way that we calculate hitting yardage has been over 100 yards in our favor. This week it was 266. And that's really all three phases. That's offense, defense, special teams. Obviously the turnovers had a role in that, but that's where their starting field position is compared to where our starting field position is, multiplied by the amount of drives, how much further Florida State would have to go to score the amount of points that we had to score. They're basically starting the game 266 yards behind us because of how we dominated field position, and that's been something that has been happening the last few weeks. Lewis Headley becoming a massive weapon for us in the punting game, KJ Osborne becoming a massive weapon for us. We're now second in the ACC and 11th in the country in punt returns, and we're starting to understand that punting is not always a bad thing to have happen, because every time we punted the ball, we got it back on offense, we moved closer to their goal line, which is what the game is all about, and some of the things that we felt like hurt us in the past with field position, where we now have that remedied. Offensively, when you talk about the explosive plays, we outgained them by 130 yards in explosive yardage. But it's not just, Jeff Thomas's touchdown, for example. We threw a post in the quarters coverage. That's going to be a one-on-one. That's a play you have a chance to win. What really stood out to us as a coaching staff, and made a big deal about it last night, is there's 5 guys running a route on that play. And all 5 guys ran the route exactly the way the route's supposed to be run. There's a difference, even with Jeff, there's a difference between knowing that you run a post and understanding how to run a post, and the way that he stuck the route at the top of the route. And what we're starting to see all the at-bats, all the reps in practice, and a team that's beginning to understand that the little details make all the difference. So it's not just I'm faster and I can just run by you because I'm faster. It's I may be faster, but I also know how to sell a route now. And then you take the 5 offensive linemen, the protection on the 2 posts for touchdowns was terrific. And then if I don't know how a ball could be thrown any better than those 2 balls were thrown by Jaron Williams. And like I mentioned on Saturday, there had been an idea that he struggled with throwing the deep ball, and I thought that went away, because both those balls were placed right into the breadbasket. You couldn't have reached out and handed the ball any better than both of those throws. So very proud of the way that those guys finished, played the game offensively. We were able to possess the ball in the fourth quarter and really take the edge off the game. Defensively, obviously, what can you say? A dominant performance. Great to have 2 years in a row now holding those guys to about 200 yards of offense. The defensive line was relentless. We felt like going into the game that they had not seen a defensive front like ours that was going to play in the manner in which we played. But you got to put it into reality. You got to go out there on the grass and make it happen. And our guys, all of them were relentless. The sack numbers, of course, are what they are, but really the reason why the sack numbers were so great is because there were so many guys beating blocks and getting free that the quarterback really had nowhere to go. I thought our guys did a great job of coverage, a lot of times taking away the first look. Florida State is an explosive passing offense. That's what they want to do, and their inability to create a play longer than 20 yards was telling to our success. And then obviously stopping Cam Akers, who's a threat to go all the way. Every time he has a ball, threat to break tackles. And again, the way that our front played, Shaq Quarterman, our linebackers, Pigney, those guys, they were dominant. But in times the ball bounces out, Trajan Banny, bam, outstanding tackle. Ball bounces out, Rob Knowles, great tackle. So our most complete performance by date, we feel like we are improving. The players are starting to gain some confidence, and we're going to need it, because this Saturday we play a very dangerous Louisville football team who had a week off to think about nothing but the Miami Hurricanes. Pretty dynamic in terms of what they do on both sides of the ball. They've obviously got some very skilled weapons. All these guys playing for Louisville were all recruited when Lamar Jackson was there. And obviously Scott Satterfield's done a great job of re-energizing that program and getting them to play the way that they're used to playing up at Louisville. So with the game being homecoming, with the game being senior day, it's just amazing to think that some of these guys will be playing their last game at Hard Rock Stadium. We hope to have a great crowd. We need to have a great crowd to make it as hard on Louisville as possible and to get around our fans and really cheer on this team that I think is starting to hit its stride here in the month of November. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Hi, Manny. I know player improvement's a hallmark of the program, something you've emphasized. We've seen a bunch of players improve. Obviously, Feely's made an enormous difference. You just gave an example about Stubblefield has taught them how to sell the routes more. Can you give us a couple other examples of areas where player development has improved, whether it's giving players more information in spring exit meetings about where they have to improve, things like that? Do you have a couple other examples of what you've changed in player development?
Well, the one guy that does pop up that I know I mentioned him before, but I can't say enough about what this guy's doing is Rob Knowles. Rob Knowles is so important to our football team. I don't know where we'd be without him. I don't know how many wins we'd have without Rob Knowles. And it's a guy that faced a lot of adversity in his career. And in fact, the last time that we went to Tallahassee, he was involved in Florida State's go-ahead touchdown. And then to go out there and play the way he played as a senior, he's the guy that right now in college football is not sticking and staying. He's a guy that doesn't look player development in the eye, that wants to leave and wants to go somewhere else because he wants the assumption that it'll be easier somewhere else. So whether it's Ephraim Bonham and our strength staff, I do think that the job that Feely and those guys have done in the weight room in terms of loosening him up, and he's more athletic now than he's ever been in his career. But the way he's played in our secondary is a testament to player development. And that not all players, and that's why recruiting rankings and all, whatever that means, not all players walk on the campus ready to play from day one. But it's our job as coaches to get them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So Rob, for sure, is one example of that. Even last week, obviously we talked about Greg Rousseau, and Greg, who was just named ACC Defensive Lineman of the Week, which is pretty cool. But again, Greg's a guy that didn't know a whole lot about playing defensive end when he came here, and then obviously had to spend some time getting hurt. So, getting a guy like that, transforming his body, because the way he looks now is not the way he looked when he was dropped off on our campus, 18 months ago. So those are two, but there's examples all over. DJ Dallas didn't come here as a running back. DJ Dallas played quarterback in high school, so, it just never stops. You're always trying to find a way to get these guys to maximize their potential, and that's one of the things that you take as much pride in as a coach. And coaches a lot of times like to beat their chest about this guy was a first rounder, this guy was a first rounder. Sometimes it's getting that guy that became an undrafted free agent, that was not going to be that. One of the most awesome stories that we've been here the last 4 years was Adrian Colbert, who's still in the National Football League and was left, basically out of football at Texas, and came here and had a great, 2016. So as coaches, you love just advancing those guys, just getting them to be as best as they can be, whatever's out there for them. That's as much of a success story as a guy that develops into a first rounder.
And one thing I meant also was in terms of things you've done differently with development. Like, for example, when you had exit meetings in April, did you tell your coaches, I want more specific lists to give guys of where they can improve? Because clearly you've done some things different to get players to even develop further. Like what types of things there?
Yeah, you're always you're always going to sit down with the players afterwards and say, okay, here's what you do well, here's what you need to work on, here are the things that you need to work on. It might be transforming your body. You need to be at this body weight, you need to be at this body fat, to try and get them to be the best version of themselves they can be. So to me, a big believer in that constant feedback, the constant communication back and forth, so our guys always know where they stand.
Hey Manny, you talked about the week of practice and how it correlated into the game. Can you quantify that a little bit? Just what was different, what was better, and you know, it's like you said, it's November. I mean, obviously you were trying to do that in August. Why is it happening now when it didn't happen before?
It's weird, and it's great to say that because you'd love for it to just happen. But if things just happened, you really wouldn't need coaches, right? If everybody just did the right thing all the time, which would be cool. But no, what was happening is we started having really good Tuesday practices, and in terms of guys really understanding how to work, putting the work in, going out there, and because Tuesday and Wednesday are the two hardest days of the year. We were having good Thursday practices. We weren't having a great Wednesday, just for whatever reason. Wednesday's a big day. Wednesday we do, 1 minute drill, we do, red zone, we do third down, a lot of critical situation stuff on Wednesdays. And we walked out the field last Wednesday and we said that by far was our best Wednesday practice, this year. Just whatever the guys putting it together, being able to stay focused throughout the entire practice. Again, I think a little bit more of the accountability they're having on each other, to keep themselves, and not to accept anything other than the best. And that's why I always go back to player accountability being sort of the secret sauce in all this. So, it's hard to pinpoint and say, here's the exact reason why it is. Sometimes teams just mature. Sometimes young guys that are just figuring out what this is all about, week in and week out, and how the game requires your best every week, every day. That's a learned behavior, and that's a muscle that has to be exercised, no different than a bicep, So some of our guys are starting to understand, and when you can show, so that's why when we go back to the Jeff Thomas touchdown, when you can show I don't have to rely on my talent to get open. If I'm talented, it's even better. But the way that I stick a route, the way I do this, the way I do that actually helps. Now the guys understand that, I get it, that's what translates. And that's just a process players have to learn.
Hey, Manny.
How are you?
Doing great. So, I want to ask about some recruiting stuff. Actually, we were FaceTiming kids after the game. They were super excited. You were excited, obviously. Wanted to get your thought, a couple of questions on this. Want to get your thoughts on recruit reaction to the game from your perspective. They were more fired up, like if this is a real momentum builder for recruiting, this single win, which it can be. And then the second part is, with Florida State's issues, a lot of other schools trying to go after, obviously, some Florida State commitments, some of them who have recently decommitted. Do you have room in the past to maybe go after some new names? Obviously you can't mention Piper, there are some names you've already gone after that are FSU commits or now decommits. Are there some new names that you guys can go after? Is there room in the past to maybe add a few kids that you haven't done before you know evaluate and say, maybe this is a good thing to get in with?
Answer the first part first. So there's no doubt that the feedback after the game was very positive. But as I mentioned, we've been pretty impressed with this class being pretty strong, pretty tight connections, the kids to one another. But they want to see it. I think the guys believe in what we're doing here, but it's fun to have it show on the field, especially in such a performance like we put out there on Saturday. In terms of our recruiting class, we all know how fluid recruiting is, and how things can change between now and signing day. So there are guys that we have been recruiting, at multiple positions, that some may be committed to other places, some may not be, you know what I mean? So we're always trying to, as you approach signing day, you're always trying to do everything you can to get the class to be as good as it can possibly be. So if that kind of answers the question, I think you catch my drift.
And you mentioned how much confidence is coming over the team right now. Is there a reason to believe that this team this week will not venture into overconfidence, and what measures need to be taken to make sure it doesn't happen?
That's a great question, because what does the confidence come from? What we need to be confident in is our work. What we need to be confident in is our attention to detail. Not confident in that we've got this figured out. And that's what restarts every week. The work restarts every week. The attention to detail restarts every week. Okay, so we've given them some challenges, even on some off the field stuff. Okay, to try to make some player accountability things happen. They all have an assignment today. We don't have them today, but they have an assignment to win Monday. So all we're trying to do today is win Monday. So we'd be very foolish with some of our past performances to walk around and act like we've got anything figured out, other than we know that we work very hard and we prepare at a very high level, our chances of winning go up. And we should not be able to say anything other than that. We don't have anything else figured out other than we understand that hard work and attention to detail gives us a chance to win every football game we play.
Manny, your thoughts on Camden Price and if he's your new kicker going forward, and also I was wondering about Bubba Bolden injury situation, whether he'll play Saturday, whether he's out for the season or longer.
Yeah, right now we're rolling with Camden as our kicker, unless something happened from a preparation standpoint during the week where that wasn't going to be the case. Obviously he went 2 out of 3. What I really loved about Camden, though, is that the one that he missed, I don't know if we've had this at all this year, situation that he went back in there and made the next one. And that was not just a small kick. I mean, that was a kick that made it a 3-score game and really kind of, ended the contest. So, and he didn't make it. It went like right down the clown's mouth. You know what I mean? High, right through the middle between the sticks. So, and again, you got to remember, it's in Tallahassee. You know what I mean? Like these are high pressure situations. Going out there and kicking. So I was very proud of Camden for finishing, even though he missed the one kick. And then in terms of Bubba, yeah, we will not have Bubba for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, he will be out for the season, and which is tough on our defense because he was really starting to play at a very high level. And we'll have to do what we always do. We'll rely on the depth we have at the safety position and move on.
Is he back for next spring? Do you know?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Manny, D. Wiggins was really emotional after he scored that touchdown. I know you have some young receivers that are trying to grow up and get there. What have you sort of challenged D and maybe some of the other young guys like Mark, over these last couple weeks, and what do you want to see from them the rest of the season?
What was amazing about D and D being emotional is that D, when you start talking about guys that are canes in the locker room and guys that really care about the University of Miami, D's one of those guys. And in fact, a couple weeks ago when, things were, leaders needed to step up and guys needed to, say some hard truths, D was one of the guys that did it. Which, young guy, you're a sophomore, do you have the status to, but it didn't matter because D cares so much about the University of Miami Hurricanes that he wanted to get it right. So to see him be the guy on the big post, that really, it was a big play there in the second half of the game was pretty cool. So I don't want to speak for him in terms of what his emotions are, but I know how much it means for him to make that play in that game. But for all those guys, you talk about player development. I mean, like where Mark Pope is as a receiver now compared to where he was even in August is night and day. The guys are learning how to play the position. And again, there is talent, right? But then there is a skill, and the skill doesn't mean it's skill like running, jumping, whatever. Like those are talents, but the skill of how to run this route, how to get open versus this type of coverage, and those type of things. And that's where I'm very excited in the development of our passing game. And I thought Jaron getting back in there and quarterbacking the thing the way he did on Saturday, I thought he looked very confident, very assured. And some of the things that when we went back, if you go back to August when this thing was kind of starting to get rolling a little bit, we kind of got sidetracked. What I think our offense can be in the future.
We'll do 2 more questions.
And then you talked about Bubba Bolden being out there. I know he's already kind of used with that red shirt. Is it possible for him to medically red shirt? I'm not sure about all the.
I'm not the expert. We'll have to find out if there's any avenue, of course, that can be explored. We'll explore it.
Anything else?
Can Bubba get a medical? That's I guess it's already played 5 games.
I think that's what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, if they can find something out, they'll look into it.
And we haven't talked about Louisville yet. Can you talk a little bit about them? I saw their game against Wake Forest. I haven't seen all their games, obviously, but it was kind of ridiculous. And I'm sure as a defensive guy, you're watching that tape and like kind of grimacing a little bit. What challenges do they pose, and why has Satterfield been so successful in kind of awakening their offense, so to speak?
There's a couple different things. One, it's not just defense, it's special teams. They're third in the country in kickoff return, and I think they had 2 massive ones in that Wake Forest game that set them up with short fields, or they scored, and then another one was a short field. They run the ball. They commit, same thing they did at App State. They commit to running inside and outside zone, and they do a really nice job of that. There are skilled guys that are really good players at Louisville. Obviously there were some things that made Louisville look, not to what they were in the last year, whatever was going on. But coach has gone in there and he's got them playing to me back to the level that Louisville was playing at a couple years ago. So they can run the ball, but I think where they trick you is like really good run teams where they can get you in some play action. They're third in our league in rushing. They're 35th in the country in rushing. They are number 1 in our league in yards per pass attempt, and they are 6th in the country in yards per completion. So again, it's kind of that they fool you a little bit there. I mean, they do a really good job running the ball, but you devote all your resources stopping the run, and then all of a sudden here comes the explosive pass, and they got some explosive guys. They got 2 wideouts that will be as much of a challenge that we've had to face of anybody this year. So they've got some dudes, you know. I mean, this is a good football team, and to think of it in any other way would be foolish. That's why I always talk about preseason expectations and college football. You know, what you saw last year, we know what you saw last week doesn't always correlate to what you see next week, and for sure what you saw last year doesn't. So you know, we expect a great challenge that I think we'll be ready for.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.